Thank you. Well, hello, namaste. A very warm welcome to everyone who's joined us for this very exciting fireside chat, the trials, the tribulations, the triumph of the Indian women's hockey. And of course, something that we all want to know, will they chuck the India in 2024? Today, we have with us the legendary coach, Sjoerd, the Dutch man behind the remarkable performance of the Indian women's hockey team in Tokyo Olympics 2020. Coach Marijne has been coaching at the highest level for over 20 years and has a deep bond with the Indian women's hockey team. The team may not have won a medal, but they did something bigger. They won billions of hearts and inspired millions to dare to dream big. On the other side today, we have our moderator, Dhananjay Goel. He's a student at Harvard Kennedy School and is an amazing moderator. Over to you, Dhananjay.
Thanks, Avika. Amazing is a stretch, but thank you so much, and thank you again, Mr. Marijne, for joining what promises to be a wonderful conversation. I'm going to just kick right in. Firstly, thank you so much for joining on behalf of the entire student body over here at Harvard. We're really happy to have you here, and we're just looking forward to learning as much as we can from you over this next 1 hour. So while I'm the one who's going to be asking the questions, obviously this effort is headed by over 50 students across schools at Harvard, and from all of us, thank you so much for joining. So let me just kick right in. You took over the women's hockey team in 2017 after they finished 12th out of 12 at the Rio Olympics, and cut to Tokyo. You turned the team's fortunes and brought them closer than ever to an Olympic medal. After the Olympics, you said that we did something much more than winning a medal. We created a legacy. So can you just kick us off by talking about how different was the team that you took over in 2017 from the team that we saw in Tokyo? If you can walk us through 2 or 3 key changes.
Good evening, first of all. Thank you for the invitation. And so when I entered the team in 2017, was February. We started in Bhopal. And what I saw with the team is a team who has lack of ambition. That is one of the things I saw. That is also because the previous Olympics didn't went that well. They play 1 draw against Japan, and that was it. And also there was no enjoyment from the tournament, what I received as feedback from the girls. But what I also saw is a team where with girls who didn't take responsibility. When I asked a question, nobody said something. They were always afraid to talk to me. And it was a really difficult situation to start with the team, because I need input from the team. If they understand things, which direction are we going? In Netherlands, we are used to involve the team in these kind of things. And in India, that's a little bit less. But I really believe also the opinion of players is important, because then they feel more ownership and they feel responsibility. If you don't say anything and you're afraid to speak to the coach, that will be very difficult. So that was more or less my start.
That's lovely. And let me just actually pick up on that. When you joined the women's team, what were your first impressions of the team tactically and technically? Like, was it tough to get players to open up, especially girls who came from remote parts of the country? I think what I'm trying to hint at is that how can we encourage other girls from similar backgrounds to take up sports? Avika talked about Chak India. And, we saw in that movie how, I'm sure you would have seen that movie as well. We saw in that movie, because, the real life Chak India, apart from Ranjan Negi, how did you sort of have these women open up and really just bring their true selves to the forefront?
Now when I entered the team, the other thing is you're talking about technical and tactical things, but the first important thing, international hockey, is the physical side. And most of the times the Indian girls are not used to be, or they're not really tall girls. And so the physical side is extremely important, because the Australian girls are much taller. they do one step and our Indian girls need to do two steps. So there was already a big difference. But for me, what was really important, that they're more aware about what is important on the physical side. And Wayne Lambert, our strength and conditioning coach, was a really important part. He played a really important part in this on this side of the story. And I think for girls, for young girls coming into these kind of teams, make sure this is always good. This is something you can do at home. Be really fit. Yeah, and being fit is having the good body composure to play sports on a high level, and know what you're eating, know what kind of food is good for you. These kind of things. And in the beginning, it was not there, these awareness. But slowly in the years, and these are small steps, the girls improved, and it's all because we learned themselves. Okay, what is good for you and what is not good for you. So that is one of the things when I started team in the beginning. And tactical, they were afraid to take decisions. I know I already mentioned this, but if they're afraid, because if they take a decision what was not right, they were always like punished for that. And yeah, what I told them, listen, if you make the wrong choice, it doesn't matter as long as you learn from it. Yeah, that you don't make it twice or 3 times. And I think that is an important thing. And on that way, the girls started to trust me, and I created a connection with them. But first, they have to feel like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Fine, it happens. Yeah, I'm not punishing them on any way. Yeah, or shout to them. It's like, okay, you can make a mistake, but what do you do after the mistake?
Very interesting. Can you and how did they respond? I mean, when you're talking about, I think what you're hinting at is more about taking up responsibilities and ownership, and how this was an opportunity not given to them in the past. How did they respond to that? Can you just walk us through maybe 1 or 2 examples where this really came up?
Yeah, like in the beginning, they were always saying, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. So like for me, it was like, okay, they understand. But then I understood slowly the culture about you never say, no, sir, I don't understand. Because then you show your vulnerability and like, okay, maybe now he drops me. And the moment I showed the girls, listen, you don't have to be my best friend. That's the first thing. I still want to coach you. But the moment I showed them, listen, you are not dropped. The moment I don't pick you, the moment you're not doing things right, yeah, that means like, okay, I can make mistakes. And the moment they know I can make mistakes, as long as I work hard and try to improve, then, okay, I will make steps and the coach is happy. But in the beginning, it was all about the girls were really focused on not performing for themselves or for to achieve something with the team. It was all about make me happy as a coach. Because when the coach is happy, all is good. It doesn't matter what happens after that. And he will pick me for next camp. So that is something, of course, and you always have to, I can tell them I'm not dropping you. Yeah, but I have to show it. Yeah, and that is what happened with tours. And like, I give them confidence in that.
Interesting. When we're talking about confidence, let's talk about belief. I think you've often been quoted as saying that it all starts with the belief. Did you use certain strategies to really up the mental health and the mental health game of the team? And how can this sort of motivated feeling remain sustainable in the long run?
Now, what is important, we are using always statistics. So in the statistic, they don't lie. How many circle entries we have, how many times we won the ball, how many times we lost the ball. And numbers, what I already said, they don't lie. So I showed them when we lost the match, like, listen, girls, we had at the same time circle entries against a really good nation, country, but listen, they were just, the execution from them was better, but it doesn't mean they were the better team. And on that way, slowly, they started more believe in themselves, because that's where it starts. And I, as a coach, I say, come on, okay, start believing in yourself. That's not the way it works. Yeah, they have to feel it. They have to experience it. And by these numbers, they experience like, okay, they had a really bad feeling about the match, but then it's like, okay, the numbers are pretty good. They are realistic. Yeah, if we improve these few small things, then we really are going to win these matches. And on that way, slowly, the confidence grows and grows. And that is also my job as a coach. I can show them many, many wrong things, but I also can show them the things we did good in these matches. And then they see, because players, when they don't play well, they know themselves. Yeah, and they know they make mistakes. I don't have to push. I don't have to push them even more down. Yeah, and that is where it's important, the role of a coach. Like, okay, listen, what can you improve here, and what did you already did good? And on that way, this process is slowly about the confidence growing.
Interesting. And, you talked about progressive matches. You talked about how you use statistics to really talk about how they can do better in the next match. But what about the last match? What about, when you played against Great Britain, our, former colonial rulers, and we lost 3-4, right? That was something which was just heartbreaking. It was sort of the opposite of the euphoria we felt at the end of Chak De India when we won by like one penalty shot. And we remember how Rani Rampal said that, it's yet to sink in. That feeling was yet to sink in. How did you sort of, really work with the mental health of the team? And really at that point of time, what did you really speak to them about?
Yeah, like, listen, on this match from against GB, it was like the third, fourth position. For me, always before the match, I tell the girls, listen, give everything you've got. That is your main job. And if you do that well, and you look after the match in the mirror and you watch yourself, and you must be able to say to yourself, okay, I gave everything I've got. I can't give any more. This is what it is. And if the other one is better, it's also sports, then the other one is better. But the moment you feel like still I have energy left, I could have done more, then you regret things. And that is what we had against the match against GB. All the girls felt like, okay, we gave everything we've got. And on these moments, like when you lose a match for a medal, you're so disappointed. So that's normal. Yeah. But slowly they thought, like, that I showed them, listen, I let them experience the big picture. We created more girls. The dream goal about inspire 1.3 billion Indians, inspire girls. I think we achieved that goal, and that is something big because that's a legacy.
Absolutely, and that you did. I want to actually really queue up the next part. It really shifts in well. Talking about gender equity in sports, you talked about how the performance of the women's team lifted up 1.4 billion people. That I think one of the reasons that really just touched such a strong part of our heart was because we had these women from across the country really, leading the charge here and being toe to toe with the men's team, and if not better. And I think what I want to ask you about is about gender equity in sports. What is the role that you see about gender equity of gender equity in sports? Because you've coached both the men's team as well as the women's team in India and in Netherlands. And then what is the role of sports organizations, government associations in sort of uplifting the importance of women's sports in India?
Yeah, of course. Listen, yeah, everybody's watching sports, and that sports can be an example for many things. I think things are happening in a team sport can also happen on the work floor in corporates. So if you give an example with sports, it will go to the whole country. People will follow this because these players, men and women, are examples, and the federations are examples about how to deal with these difficult situations. And I must say, with the women, we always had the same funding as the men. We had our tours, we had our tournaments, and I never had issues with these kind of things. And of course, you always feel like, okay, maybe the men get a little bit more attention, and that's also because of the past, and that is what we wanted to change. But I don't feel it's because of the organizations you name that they don't give us the attention. It's more the world around that. Yeah, and I must say more and more attention is for gender equality. Yeah, and I think that is just important that you talk about it, because then it's already more easier for people to deal with it.
That's very interesting to hear, because that sort of breaks down a lot of barriers, right? Whenever when there was an Instagram handle, the Indian Olympic Association, someone which sort of posted your fireside chat today with with one of the songs from Chak De India, and talks and is really about really about how we're now empowered. I think that song refers to how women are now finally empowered and so on. But you saying that, some of these that we are actually being equally treated is wonderful to hear. I want to then ask you a follow-up question. How can we as a society invest more in each athlete's preparation?
Yeah, what I think it's important is invest as a society in each athlete is more recognition that someone has capabilities, and I think we all do. And I think with that, that we give people chances to develop their skills, and because everybody has skills, human skills, all kind of skills, and I think that's where it starts, and that will make it easier. And if we create an environment and in India where people really can be seen and can do what they love to do, and be can spoken to as, okay, what are your qualities, more about what you're not able to do or what can't you do well, I think then already you have even more talents who are coming up, and yeah, can also be the next future stars, because that's what you would like, because more people need to inspire the nation, because little girls now they start playing hockey because what they saw. And yeah, if there are schools for them to start playing hockey and with other sports, that will be a big step.
Wonderful. And that brings me, I would like to actually talk a little bit more about that. I would like to talk with you about brass tacks, which is about money. And, when you talk about how we as a society can show up, one of the ways of showing up is by helping financially. I think while we did see some wonderful participation by the Indian audience during the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, I want to ask you, how do we translate that interest to benefit female players financially to close the pay gap? And specifically, do you foresee a role for commercial leagues here?
Yeah, of course. Like the best thing what can happen for women's hockey now in India is a few things. One of the things is that there will be an Hockey India League for women, and that more girls have an opportunity to show their skills and play with international stars. I think if you can do that in India, that would be amazing, and it will give them the same step as what the men had. And in these things, there's a big difference. What the men had, like the men have many tournaments in the country, the woman didn't have. Yeah, and this is not to blame anyone. This is the actual situation in the last years. So now the Pro League, the girls are participating. I'm very happy with that. That means that they're also playing matches at home. When they're playing matches at home, they're more interesting for corporates, big corporates. Yeah, and I hope these big corporates also see, like, it's not only the sport they're doing, that they are embracing a story, and a story about, okay, how do you really can achieve something also as a woman? Yeah, because we spoke earlier in this in this time, we spoke about, okay, is everything equal? Of course, I think for me, Hockey India and Sjoerd did their best. Yeah. But what I said, if we can have more tournaments in India for the girls, that would be amazing.
Very interesting. So do you think that Indian women's hockey team should be touring more around India and have like more tournaments within India as well as outside India?
Yeah. Like, listen, what you will have, if you, for instance, have the Hockey Pro League, like the men had, the Hockey India League, then players who don't play in the national team, because you need so many players, they will also play against international stars, and they will learn from that. And from there on, you grow as not only the best 20 or 25 girls, but it grows to 50. And if 50 girls are competing with each other, the level goes up. And that is what you want to achieve. But on the other side, they're also interested. Corporates will be also more interested, because if the girls always play overseas, or somewhere else, who sees why wants Geo, for instance, on the shirts of the girls when they're playing in the Netherlands? It's not interesting for them. But on that way, and the other thing is what happened after the Olympics, you see more and more girls, they become role models. Yeah, they win prizes. I see them sometimes in with branding. I think that is something what is really good, and I'm happy that this is happening to the girls also.
Okay. I think as a follow-up to that, I'd want to talk a little bit more about international teams and your experience internationally. You've won the national championship twice. You have coached the women's hockey team in the Netherlands. You have coached under 19, under 20 teams. You have coached the women's hockey team in India. I want to talk to you about infrastructure, opportunities, and culture, which is what are the differences that you see between, let's say, sports in India, particularly, let's say, hockey, and sports in the Netherlands or in other countries, let's say, hockey. If you can talk about the infrastructure available, the opportunities, as well as the culture.
Yeah, it's difficult to compare Netherlands with India, because India is like Europe and Netherlands is like Bangalore. And the smaller region you have to control, the easier it is. If we want to play matches, it takes 5-10 minutes to drive to a club. It can take maximum 2 hours, but normally in 1 hour, you are already at another club. And we have so many clubs, we have so many pitches. So that is easier, and that is difficult in India. Our talent identification is much easier because we have many coaches, and I think that is the difference with India. And the other thing, what the difference is in the Netherlands, they're really focusing, you see the other countries also, to do well at the Olympics. We have a really good program, and as a small country, we're always doing well. But it's also because we are really, really well prepared. I know, for instance, that the Olympic Committee is now already in France. They have a house in France, and they are now already search the best locations for all the athletes who want to train there. But they don't have it. It's not just started after these Olympics. They already have the house 1 year and a half, and maybe longer even. And that's the same what they did in Brazil. That's the same what they now did in Japan. So in that way, you are really very professional, and you create a culture where it's all about achieving the highest. Now, I think it says a lot about India that now Neeraj Chopra has the gold medal in athletics, but it's the first medal ever in athletics what they have at the Olympics. And that is a completely different culture, because I think now, from now on, because he has gold, young boys, girls will see, have seen like, okay, this is also what I want. He is a role model. And now the following years, it's important that India is, giving, how do you say, giving extra power, giving extra contribution to this, to programs, because this is the moment they really have to take to make that next step and really become a powerhouse at the Olympics. Like India can do it, but the infrastructure has to be organized much better. The talent identification must be organized much better. Coaches all over the country, they must be developed. And these are really important things. And I know, for instance, Hockey India is doing a lot about these things with guiding coaches. Yeah, and that is also the difficult thing about the big country. So everything has its advantage, but also its disadvantage. And the disadvantage is like, of the advantages, such a big country, so many talents, but you also have to see them. Yeah, and coaches must want to put time in these things. And I think that is a difference between the countries. And when India can create a culture about what does it mean to be an Indian powerhouse, a sports powerhouse, and then for young kids, it's getting normal. Okay, what is necessary to achieve this? And what you see now in India, the kids who are from more poor families, they're going to play sports because that is maybe the way to leave the poor side behind you. And all the kids who are doing study, they go study in the US or whatever, they are not so busy with sports. But you can make the combination, and that's the difference in my country. For instance, I'm now coaching a club team. I have one player in my team. He's 25 and he's already a doctor. He did his study together with his sports. But the skills you're learning in sports, you can use them when you quit with sports. For instance, in team sports, you cooperate. You know how it is to work with someone else. Yeah. The other thing is persistence. You keep going. Yeah. Willpower. All things really important. If I have athletes in my company, I'm very happy because I know they will never give up and they will always find solutions. And that is what sports. And if India can create that culture and really can that more students are going to play sports, I think then India really can become a powerhouse.
It's interesting. I think two comments that really stood out for me as well. One was about how India is Europe and Europe is Bangalore, and the other one,
not Europe. Sorry to interrupt. But Netherlands is here, Bangalore.
Netherlands is Bangalore. That's the, but I think that's one that I'm sure the ICH team will also hashtag it and be happy to sort of promote on Instagram. The other thought process that really stuck out to me was when you talked about team culture, teamwork, and when you talked about how people work as a team. I'm remiss to think about how when the COVID pandemic actually hit and the Tokyo Olympics were shifted back by at least a year, at that point of time, you were going to travel back to visit your family. And, you know, very famously, you turned back and you stayed in the bio bubble with the team. When you talk about teamwork, do you think that it's sometimes also important to put the team above personal, objects or things of importance, such as family, or like personal relationships, such as family?
Yeah, everybody has sacrifices, and as a coach, I have to give the example. I can't tell the girls, listen, you can't see your family, but I'm going. Yeah, so I need to give the example, and on that moment, it was a split-second decision, because if I would go back to the Netherlands, the chance of coming back before the Olympics was really difficult for me, and I worked 4 years to achieve that, of 3.5 years on that moment, to go to the Olympics with this team and to be really good. So that's why I said, listen, I can't take that risk. And I have a family, a wife and kids who understand these things. So then that's why the decision was never easy. It was really hard, but they understood what was best on that moment. Unfortunately, it took 1.5 years longer. So there was a really tough decision. But yeah, that's the way it goes. As a leader, you need to give the example. I really strongly believe in lead by example. Yeah, if you are the CEO of a company and you always come too late, your workers will also think, okay, I can also come too late. If you're not finished your job, these kind of things, you need to give the example. That's not always easy, and that's the same for captains in teams. Yeah, that's always a difficult one.
Just talking a little bit more about that, you also mentioned, in your in whatever interviews I've seen, and whatever I read, whatever our team read as run up to this discussion with you, you talk a lot about collective leadership and resilience. You talk a lot about how there needs to be collective leadership as well as a resilient team, as well as individual players. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. I'm, as a coach, I'm next to the pitch. I can't do anything in the match. I want that my players, they need to make the decision inside the pitch. I can shout left and right, but if I shout, I'm always too late because things are happening inside the pitch. So the ownership has to be with the team. Yeah, and that is what I mean with leadership. They must take responsibility. And if they are afraid to make choices, then it's going to be really hard, because you need to make constantly choices inside the pitch. That's why they must understand you can make wrong decisions and make choices, but you need to solve the problem. And sometimes it's really difficult and it doesn't go the way you want. But that is the moment you have to push yourself and you never give up. And in the beginning, when I came with the team, when we were 2-1 or 2-0 down, they already gave up. And one of the things we have learned, the girls, and one thing to make it really clear, I'm not doing this all by myself. I have good assistants and a strength conditioning coach. So, but we kept pushing them. No, you can do it. But there's a funny story and about persistence and about pushing yourself. After the Olympics, we didn't qualify. We qualified, but we were 5-1 up the first match, and the second match we were 4-0 down in 2 quarters. So after the second quarter, I told the girls inside the locker room, like, listen, we didn't lose the match, but the way they were sitting there, they were like, okay, we already lost and we are not going to the Olympics. Then, no, girls, come on, make your country proud, make your family proud. And then finally, things are happening and we score a goal by Rani, a famous goal nowadays. And that moment we were qualified. So in the next camp we came and the girls said, okay, with the feedback session, what happened with the evaluation? And they all said, listen, we had heavy legs and we were really tired. And I say, okay, fine. So on that moment, I organized a session, and it's called the 8-hour session. So I trained a lot. And then one moment I did a running exercise, and I said, listen, you have to run between backline and 25. And you have to do it 6 times in 30 seconds. And if you don't make it, you have to do it again as a team. And it doesn't matter who doesn't make it, you have to do it again. So they kept running, but they didn't make it. And again and again. Now, you know how it goes. It was really hard for the girls. And one moment I said to them, okay, listen, I'm going to offer you one thing is you can do 1 in 29 seconds, all of you, or you do 3 in 32 seconds. You can make a choice. So they make a choice, and the choice was doing 1 in 29 seconds. And you can guess what happened. They all made it. So I said, listen, heavy legs is in your mind. Yeah, it's a mind, a voice against yourself who's keep on saying, I have heavy legs. I can't do this. It's really hard in lockdown. It's really difficult now with Corona. Yeah, but there's also a positive voice in your mind who says, yes, you can do it. And now I push them, and I have let them experience the body can do more than you think. So that's what happens. And that's what I mean with resilience. And that is why the mindset for me is extremely important, because your opponent on that moment, it's not the other team, it's yourself. And that is what is happening in sports, in daily life, every struggles. You are learning for exams. Now I'm talking with you guys, so you have a lot of exams, and these exams are difficult. Yeah, but don't allow that voice who wants to talk negative and who's telling you you can't do it. It's very difficult. If that one wins, you will never be successful.
Interesting. What you, of course, we have exams. It's questionable as to how well we do on those exams, but you know what you talked about, running between the lines, reminds me of another movie similar to Chak, which is the movie Miracle, in which they talk about Coach Herb Brooks, and maybe you were the real life Herb Brooks for the women's hockey team. I want to talk actually a little bit more on that, and talk really about the weight of a nation as far as it comes to, you know, giving this high level performance. You talked about the Indian team being up, and then the Indian team being down, and the Indian team feeling dejected, as if they've let themselves down, as if they've let the nation down. And then, you know, Rani scoring famous goal, and then we qualifying. I want to talk a little bit about the weight of a nation. India, you know, hockey is India's national sport. And because of that, you know, sometimes I'm sure that these girls would have definitely felt the weight of an entire nation of 1.4 billion people on their shoulders. And you, in your sort of interviews, have talked a lot about mindfulness. You've talked a lot about, you know, how can players practice mindfulness practices such that you know, they can deal with these form of stresses. Can you tell our audience, because you're right, we do have exams, but then a lot of people joining in also, and who will be watching this later, might not know how to deal with those pressures, and including us, including myself. Can you talk more about mindfulness tactics and practices we can take in our lives?
Yeah, mindfulness is more or less about being aware about what you're feeling. So there's no athlete on the highest level in the world who's not nervous. So athletes who are going, and even Federer, Nadal, are going on the pitch, on the court, and they all feel something like a little nerve. Yeah. But the moment you recognize that and you acknowledge it, then it's more like, okay, I feel it, and it gives me goosebumps because I know this is an important match, because you don't feel nerves with not important matches. Yeah. That's what I told the girls also at the Olympics. Listen, you can be nervous. That's no problem. Yeah. Embrace the that you're nervous, and say to yourself, okay, this is a nice feeling, because I'm doing something special, instead of, oh, I'm afraid to do things. So the first thing is, mindfulness is about being aware of what you're feeling, and then know what to do. And what we always speak about is you're only busy with what you can control. So what can I control in a match in the Olympics? For instance, Vandana, she scored the most goals. She was always focused on scoring herself. And what I told her, listen, don't be focused on scoring goals, be focused on running. She's extremely fit. She is the energy maker of the team. She can keep running over and over. So I told her, keep running. Yeah, because then you give the example. And the moment she's running, she is not busy with, okay, if I don't stop the ball, I need to make goals. If I don't play well, everybody will write bad about me. She doesn't have to think about these things because you can't think about two things. So the moment she's busy with the running part, I know she will give energy to the team. She will be on the good positions. And if she is on the good positions, the chance of scoring will be bigger. So you're doing something, so you're not focusing on the end goal. You want to you want to pass your exam. Yeah. The moment you want to do that, the first thing you're going to do is study. So that is what you can control. You can't control the outcome. You don't know the questions. Yeah. But if you think, or if you do everything what you did, if you do everything what you can control as good as possible. So learning, practice exams, now go on. I don't have to tell you all the things. Then you can go to the exams like, okay, I feel a little bit excited, uh, but I also know I'm so good prepared. I'm ready for this. And then you're not busy with, okay, if I don't make this exam, I will have to leave school. I have to do 1 year longer. I go on. So the what if thinking completely disappears. Yeah. And if the what if thinking disappears, then you're busy. What can I control? And that is not a process what you're doing in 1 month. Yeah. That is a long, long process.
Very interesting. What you refer to is, I mean, for us Indians, we've also a lot of us would have read the Bhagavad Gita and would have heard about do the work, do not worry about the outcome. I think that's what you're referring to, and it's very interesting to hear that that's something that can help players cope with such form of stresses as well. I want to talk a little bit more about that because you link that with exams, right? And you link that with sort of you link that with things that students like us as well as people across the world can use in their daily lives. How do you see the interplay between sports and education, and really, what is the role of sports in education, what is the role of education in sports, and how do you see that interplay sort of taking place? More specifically, what I'm trying to refer to is that one of the people, Avika and Saloni, two of the people who were in the back end really pushing this, working in the logistics for this conversation, were both tennis players and swimmers and so on. And they really wanted to ask you, and asking on their behalf as well as the audience, how do you see that interplay taking place?
I think that's extremely important. First of all, if you feel physical fit, yeah, you feel also earlier mentally fit. The other thing is with sports, you also have setbacks. It's part of life. That is also what you have in study. But in sports, you learn to deal with it. You have to push yourself. You have to go on. Yeah. So these setbacks will make you stronger. And that is what athletes are used to. The other thing with sports, you learn to work together. Yeah, in many sports, not all sports, yeah, but even also in tennis, you can learn to work together. And that is also now at studies, you also need to do projects together. You cannot be a loner. You need to work with the other one and accomplish the assignment. I think that is something. But the other thing is about pushing yourself, reaching your potential. And that is what you're doing every time in sport. But you see, because of you are seeing your limitations, you also know, okay, it doesn't go the way I want. What do I do now? So you have a plan B. And that's the same what you do with your academics. You always have to have a plan B, a plan C. And I think that's where sports can be very important. And I think studying is good. I love, it's important. Let's make it like that. But it's also important sometimes go away from the books, go away behind the laptop, and just fresh air, because that refresh your mind. And personal, like I can't run so much anymore, bad knees. But when I was running, I always could clear my mind. I came back and I'm like, okay, I was thinking about a lot of things, what happens in my life, about decisions I had to take. And it was easier during running than sitting behind my laptop or books. And I think that combination works really well. And you're young, everybody is young. You need to, it's also about your health, your personal health, what is important.
That's interesting because, a lot of lot of us who have been, whether we're students or whether we're working over the last 2 years, have sort of been confined. At least there's a class at Harvard in which one of the professors refers to us as the laptop and latte crowd. And I find that to be a perfect way to sort of describe some of us who are privileged to be able to not just go here, but at the same time, have the ability to be able to work from home. Not everybody has that privilege. I want to ask you if you have any tips for our audience, especially those like me, which form a part of the laptop and latte crowd, as to how can we remain physically fit even if we can't go outside because of the pandemic.
Yeah, like listen, I'm doing exercises at my home, in my room, and you do 20-25 minutes. I like HIIT training. It's 30 seconds doing intensity exercise. Yeah, you can do with your knees, all kind of things. I don't have push-ups, whatever. I'm gonna not name all the exercises, but 30 seconds, you do the exercise, 30 seconds rest. You take 5 exercises, you repeat it 4 times, you're busy 20 minutes. If you do that every day, yeah, it's just, and even better when you are starting your day before you're doing it, because you already had something done physical. And that's why I also believe that will help you mentally. You will get more ideas. You will refresh your mind more or less. It's so on that way, I would advise it.
Because I've been advised by my team that we're at the 20-minute mark, less than 20 minutes left. And it's funny, the time just flew by, but we have a bunch of audience questions, which the team has been answering at the back end as well, but they've sort of pushed to me to be asking you. I think one of the questions that we want to be able to ask is that I think Amit is also asking that, what are the moments which stood out to you, during the Tokyo Olympics, the moments which made you realize that something special was happening?
Yeah, of course, that was the match against Australia. That was for me the match that I felt like, okay, we are in the semifinals. We have 2 opportunities to get a medal. But yeah, for India, Australia is there in sports, yeah, and that we were able to beat those tall girls, physical, strong, never happened. And I think that was something amazing, unbelievable. What happened after that was a roller coaster. But it was more important for me that in all those years, we lost so many matches. And every time I had to tell the girls, listen, girls, we are doing well. We're getting very close to them. These are the stats. Yeah, but every time I was like, we didn't win. Yeah. And that not that confirmation about that you really did well, and only me talking. And now finally the moment was like, listen, girls, we not did only really well, we also won. And that was an amazing moment.
Interesting. A lot, as there are a few people who mentioned that in the Q&A and in message to me about the fact that you didn't continue, and we would have all loved to see you continue. I guess the question therein being that, did you have a bittersweet feeling about leaving the team, and did you enjoy your stay in India? And if you had continued, what would be your future goals for the team?
Yeah, of course. Like, listen, you have to see, I have 4 children. I have a family, I have a wife, and my children are 21, 19, 16, and the youngest one is 10. And I didn't become father to see them always through a screen. Yeah, the life in India is different than in the Netherlands. So I understand why people are saying that, and they ask me a lot. Yeah, like in India, you get a child, your parents help you to raise your child, and more or less when you become yourself grandparent, you're going to raise the child of your child. So it skips one generation. In my country, it's completely different. And that's why I left India. It was the best moment. Yeah, for me, it was because I really wanted to go back after 4.5 years to my family. And at the end, that is the most important thing about in life. It's your life. And did I enjoy India so much, so very much? Like, the people are really warm, sometimes also really, the thing is, Indians love their country. You would say, okay, that's normal. Now, in my country, we love when the Netherlands soccer team is winning, and because we can go again to the city and have some beers with friends. Yeah, that's when we like when we cheer for Netherlands. But India is really deep in the hearts, and that is what I love. And on the other hand, with that is also, I have sometimes comments when it didn't go well, they were really hard and rude. And I never experienced that. So like, I remember one comment from someone on Twitter, Marijne has to be thrown into the sea. So I was like, okay, I'm just an hockey coach. I never experienced this. In the Netherlands, you have these kinds in soccer. But it's also because they love so much what we are doing and so much love for the country. So I really love and enjoy that.
I mean, and one of the questions is that what were your top 3 memories as coach of the Indian women's hockey team? If you can just talk about that.
The first one is Australia. Absolutely. That's on my number 1. Number 2 is we had a tour to Spain in 2018. And that was a special tour, and where all the girls came with their personal stories. And it was an emotional talk. I hope you understand. I can't talk about that more. And the third one was, what was my third one? I had so many special moments with them, because traveling with them was always a special thing, and what was nice to go away. But I think the first match against GB at the World Cup 2019, we play a draw. We had to win that match. There was 10,000 people in the stadium. We play against a home nation, a home country, and we played so well. And they were not like, you can freeze or you can fight, and they were not freezing at all. In the circumstances we were, the mindset was so good. They were in the fight modus, and I loved that match. And that in front of 10,000 people, the first time they experienced that, it was really nice.
Very interesting. Do you have any advice for you, since you're not there? Of course, that makes complete sense. And thank you for sharing. We wish you a wonderful time with your family and your 4 children. Do you have advice for some of the other coaches of women's teams, women's sports teams within India?
Yeah, what I think is really important is see what someone is, see what they can do, and don't always watch what they can't do. So watch the positive things and use the strengths of someone. So if someone can hit, for instance, hard, let's talk about tennis. If someone has a really good forehand, but the backhand is not that good, you can train 100 hours for the backhand, but you also can learn them to run around the backhand and hit more with the forehand. And because that's what they like, and that's what then they do things what they enjoying. Yeah, because what you can do well, people like to do it. And I think that is important. Too many times we're talking about what people can't do, especially with kids.
Very interesting. And I want to actually talk about something which has been mentioned in the Q&A as well, which is regarding government support. And you mentioned earlier about how you're seeing a renewed support for sports and enthusiasm from the government side in terms of at least providing funding. And that was very heartening to hear. If you had to advise the government, or if you had to, let's say, give some unsolicited advice, either way, about where should government or, let's say, public organizations focus on infrastructure, research, training, being, let's say, 3 buckets, where would you place most focus on?
Yeah, it's not one thing. Like infrastructure, I also know it's very difficult in India. You can't change the size of the country. So I think we get a war. That's not what we want. So the first thing, that is not important. But the thing is, if you have better talent identification, that also people from poor regions also have their chance. But also the most important is that more kids are able to train. Yeah, in what kind of sports, that they have a local sports center, and then they can discover, okay, what do I like the most? Yeah, and I like when kids not only play one sport. So for instance, my girls, they can play hockey, but if I throw a ball, they can't catch the ball. Yeah, and to become a have more skills, you also need to learn other sports, because that helps to develop your, let's say, your first sport. So for instance, if you do hockey and you play tennis, your eye and hand coordination will be better. Yeah, you will stop easier high balls, and your body is not only doing in the young age only the same movement. You want diversity in the movements, and I think that is an important thing for the future of India. Yeah, I see sometimes that athletes are always doing the same over and over. The body, the moment they have to perform when they are older, the body can't do anything anymore. It's exhausted. Yeah, so that is one thing. Talent identification I already mentioned. With the coaches, I have experienced a few coaches who are really stubborn and are not open to learn, and not all of them, because a few really want to learn, but they also want to go really fast to the highest level. And if they're not on the highest level, they're like, okay, done. But I think like being a youth coach is also really important task in life. Yeah, and if they more people are seeing that also on that way, you help kids grow up, you help kids in confidence, these kind of things. um, if India can guide more coaches in this process, and they are going to be more positive to the kids, I think that will be helpful very much for the future.
There's a very interesting, there's a very interesting follow-up question in the chat which talks about who is your role model, and can you talk a little bit about that, him or her?
Yeah, I don't have really one role model. I'm watching other coaches. I like to see Pep Guardiola, but I'm also like, okay, why is he successful? That is more for me, the research. What is he doing well? What is he not doing well? I saw the documentary, and then I'm very surprised. He's talking in the meeting room only about winning, winning, winning. I never talk about winning. I'm talking about the process. Okay, what I already said. What can you control? You can't control winning. Yeah, it's an outcome of the process. Yeah, so that is fascinating. And I'm just watching coaches in different sports and see, okay, what can I learn from them? And the things what I like, okay, I use it. For instance, Rick Charleswood was really busy with the Australian hockey coach. He was always busy with creating a culture with more leaders inside the team. I think that's also fascinating and interesting. Yeah, and on that way, I have my personal role models. Like I like Federer and Michael Jordan, but like Federer and Nadal, they keep pushing themselves. And everybody thinks it's easy when they start a new tournament against the number 100 of the world. It's an easy one, but it isn't. They have to push themselves every day. But the way they deal with the mindset, performing over and over, that's fascinating. Like tennis is my old sport, my first sport. Yeah, that's why it's nice that someone from Avika, I think, is a tennis player. I really love that because mindset is so important in tennis. What Nadal and Federer are doing, that is something so amazing. People don't realize that because always the performing, the pressure they have. Yeah, and you will never hear Nadal talking about the opponent. He will never say, he was lucky. He will always talk about himself. Okay, I was not good today, not good enough today. I have to do things better. And that is amazing.
No, thank you, Fred. I think we're getting a few follow-up questions about favorite movie and things like that. But I wanted to pick up on another question first that the audience is asking about Rani Rampal. Rani Rampal as captain is a very inspiring story for all of us. How you mentioned you have certain people you look up to. Rani Rampal is for the audience, is a small was the captain, a girl from a small town in North India. Her father was a cart puller, and we hope that there is someday a documentary or a movie on the real life Chak the India, that team that you led. But the question that I want to ask you on behalf of the audience is, what role did Rani Rampal play as captain of the team, and more broadly, what role can leaders play to really steer their team on the ground?
Yeah, the most important thing leaders need to do is give the right example. If your leaders in your team, in your squad, don't give the right example as a coach, as a CEO, it's going to be really difficult to change things. Yeah, so that is the first thing they need to realize. Yeah, and as a coach, I'm pushing them every time. I take my players and also my captains outside the comfort zone, and when they feel comfortable in the outside the comfort zone, I again take them out, and that's the growing process. Yeah, and the way it goes with Rani, she's always giving the right example. She's pushing herself. Her body is not always working in this process. So I mean, like once I told her, you're like a Ferrari, and you have to. I have to use you on the right moments. Yeah, and it's not that she's that fast as the Ferrari, but yeah, Ferrari, you don't drive 365 days a year. You drive it when the weather is good. And but the moment she was not giving, she was not able with her body to give direction to the team. She always was working hard in the gym and doing her recovery. She was talking to players, and that is always important for me as a leader. But I know maybe this sounds boring, but my leaders must lead by example. That is the main thing, because others are watching, and if she's not running, for instance, you have to touch the 2 white lines, and she's not touching the white lines. What do you think a younger player will do? She will not touch the white lines, and then I can do whatever I want, but hey, the captain is not doing it. And that is what, so it takes a lot of years to become captain of teams, to become a leader. Yeah, and the moment you're there, many of them think like, I'm there, I have influence, I have power. But you have to use that power on the right way, and Rani did that. Yeah, and using it as on the right way is simple, giving the right example.
We have about 5 questions that have come in. We unfortunately might not have time, but and my team has given me 5 questions. I want to ask 2 questions as a combined question. One is about how do we translate girls participating in sports to empowering them in other areas of their life, and secondly, what is one peculiar quality you observed in the Indian women's hockey team?
So the first question, can you repeat one more time? Excuse me.
Yeah, the first question was, how can we translate girls participating in sports to empowering them in other areas of their life? So
yeah, I think I already mentioned a little bit there, like working together, persistence, keep going, pushing yourself, pushing your body. How do you deal with feedback? Is also an important one. Like feedback for me is, feedback will help me to make a next step forward. Sometimes people see feedback as criticism. If you're going to see feedback as criticism, you will never learn, you will never grow. And the moment someone gives feedback, more or less what happens is that person says, hey, listen, I'm interested in you. I think you really have the qualities. Listen, if I think that a player is not good enough, I will never get feedback, because why would I waste time in that? Yeah, I'm lucky because none of my players, all my players were open for feedback. But that will help them for making the next step. And sometimes it's difficult. If you say this is not good enough, yeah, you can do 2 things: whine, or you can change it. And the people who are successful in life, they change it and they embrace the feedback and they don't see it as criticism.
well, thank you. And that I think that there's a perfect ending, because you answered the thing that's peculiar about the hockey team as well, their ability to take feedback and be open to criticism and in all forms and shapes. On behalf of our entire team, like I said, we had over 50 people, coordinating this conference, and particularly for this panel, it would not have been possible without Avika and Saloni and Divya and Surbhi. And I think I'm the moderator, but I have 4 amazing women just behind me directly, just powering this. And so I would be remiss if I did not mention them. And there's another sports panel tomorrow. I have to also mention, I think this is perhaps the first conversation on sports that we've had in the India conference at Harvard all these past years, and we're so very grateful to have you speak with us. For all those who have joined, I also want to be able to share that we have an upcoming session. We have a fintech session which is ongoing right now, and I also want to be able to tell you that we have sessions on our website, so you can just go on the India conference website and you can look up sessions. They're all free to join, and we really, really hope that you join as well. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Marijne. I'm not going to try and butcher your name, but thank you so much, sir, for joining us on behalf of the entire student body here at Harvard. And thank you to everybody in the audience as well for joining. We hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the best and good luck in your future. And thanks for inviting me. And it was all my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.